there was, of course, a lot of shock, a lot of happiness, a lot of pride, because we all know that this is the first time that Singapore gets to send athletes to the games. Of course, within the box, there was a lot of, proud. I mean, members were proud, box owners were very happy. And also outside of the box, I received a lot of support from people I don't know, people overseas, via social media, and of course my family.
This is episode number 122 with Ian Wee. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Julie Fouché, family medicine resident and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring to you information and inspiration from experts and everyday individuals for how to use lifestyle to maximize health. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Pursuing Health. I'm very excited about this episode because I'm going to be talking with a very special CrossFit Games athlete. Now, leading into the 2009 CrossFit Games, one of the things that I was personally most excited about was having the opportunity to see country champions who had previously never had any chance to compete at the CrossFit Games take the floor. You can imagine my excitement when I found out just a few weeks before the games that one of those country champions was a man from Singapore named Ian Wee, who, like myself, was competing in the CrossFit Games while he was also going through medical school. So I was hoping I'd have the opportunity to meet Ian and catch up with him in Madison. And when I ran into him at a local affiliate and he agreed to sit down with me for an episode of the podcast, I was very, very excited. A little bit about Ian. He is 25 years old. He is the fittest man in Singapore, and he earned a qualifying spot to the 2009 CrossFit Games through this past year's Open. He is also currently a student at the National University of Singapore, Yong Lin School of Medicine. He's been doing CrossFit since 2013, but he's taken time away at various points to focus on his medical training. Interestingly, he's published over 50 scientific papers as a medical student. And also he took some time away to compete as a National Olympic Weightlifter for Team Singapore, where he set some national records in both the snatch and the total. So we sat down on the Sunday of the games to talk about his experience representing his country and also to compare notes on how he balances school with training and what he plans to do in the future. Now, before we get started, this is a reminder that although I am now officially a doctor, this podcast is meant to share the experiences of individuals and does not provide medical advice. So with that, we'll get started with episode number 122 of Pursuing Health featuring Ian Wee. So, welcome to Pursuing Health.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to be here with Ian Wee,
Yes.
who is the fittest man in Singapore,
Yes.
and who just competed in his very first CrossFit Games.
Yep.
And is also in medical school.
Yes.
Which is so awesome. So something else that we have in common. Thanks for joining me.
Yep.
So I want to talk all about your experience, but first let's go back and talk about your background. So were you always into sports growing up, or what was your athletic background prior to starting CrossFit?
Yep. So when I was much younger, I did quite a number of sports. Not at the highest level, but competitively.
Okay.
So I did soccer, badminton, karate.
Mm-hmm.
More or less these sports.
Okay.
When I was younger. And then only when I was doing competitive soccer, when I was about 15 or 16, then my parents, who were working out in a global gym,
Mm-hmm.
hooked me up with their trainer.
Okay.
And that was in, I think, 2013,
Okay.
thereabouts. Yeah. And so the personal trainer did a bit of CrossFit. And so he introduced me a couple of CrossFit style workouts,
Mhm.
CrossFit movements. And then I began venturing on my own, trying out some of the CrossFit.com workouts
Okay.
at home.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I started building like a home gym.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. But that was tough because in Singapore, like, houses are that big. We don't have that much space.
You don't have big garages
Yeah,
to build
we don't
out
have
gyms.
we don't have garages. Yeah. So I had a couple of equipments, barbells, kettlebells, boxes. Pretty much good enough for most of the workouts.
Yeah.
And then I trained on my own for about 2 years. And then my mom persuaded me to join a box
Okay.
because he said, you're just training alone. You don't know, you can't benchmark yourself against others. It's better if you have a community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think in 2015 or 2016, she persuaded me to join a box.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's where it all started.
And what was the difference that you noticed between doing it on your own and then when you joined the affiliate? What
Yep.
changed?
So definitely there are people. I was actually surprised at my level back then. So it was quite interesting. I went for a fundamental class,
Mm-hmm.
and they knew that I could do most of the movements, and so that time period was also the open season. I think 2015 opens,
Okay.
and so the Saturday the box owner invited me to the box to
Mhm.
witness this throwdown between their top athletes.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the last workout, some thruster burpee workout. And then
I remember that. That was
Yeah.
awful.
yeah, and then they got me to do it, and I managed to beat everyone in the
Wow.
box, including their top athletes. And then that struck me, and I felt maybe I have some potential in this
Yeah.
sport. Yeah.
Before that moment, did you ever think about competing, or was that a desire of yours at all? No.
Not at all. Yeah, and I wasn't that aware of the various competitions like
Mhm.
regional stuff like that. So I wasn't really into it.
Yeah. So
Uh,
were you doing it mainly just to stay in shape or for your health?
Yeah,
Or
in shape. Yeah.
Okay.
And and then I started training a bit more seriously, and back then there were talks of trying to aim for regionals.
Mhm.
I think it was back then. I think there was still Asia, the Asian
Mhm.
region. I think. Yeah, and then about a year in, I had to go to Sydney for my medical studies,
Okay.
and my medical degree I did 2 years in Sydney before coming back to Singapore. But in Sydney, it was difficult doing the opens because I wanted to represent my box in Singapore, but I could only do the opens in a box in Sydney. So,
Mm.
and back then I was still settling down in school, so I decided not to do the opens.
Okay.
And then I went to try weightlifting, and I got picked up by the national coach in Singapore,
Mhm.
and also the president, who told me that give it a try. And then for the next 2 years, 2016 to 2017, I went into competitive weightlifting
Mhm.
for Singapore.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what sorts of competitions did you do over that time period?
So I did a couple, mostly regional competitions. There was, I think the biggest one was the Commonwealth Championships in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, back then I was competing as an under 69 kg lifter.
Okay.
And I was holding all the national records and stuff like that for Singapore.
Wow.
So that was quite a cool experience.
That's crazy. And you
Yeah.
had you ever done Olympic weightlifting before 2013 or whenever
No.
you started CrossFit? Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool. So you obviously picked it up pretty quick.
Yeah.
So you did that while you were in Sydney. You had a couple of years where you were really focusing on weightlifting. And
Yeah.
then what made you decide to try to transition back into CrossFit competition?
And so 2 years into Sydney, I applied for a transfer back to Singapore, so the
Okay.
National University of Singapore, and I got accepted. And so when I came back to Singapore, my friends persuaded me to give CrossFit another go.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I think it was 2017, I decided to give all of this a break and focus on research.
Mm-hmm.
So I did a lot of research in medical school, published quite a number of papers.
Mm-hmm. What areas were you researching?
So largely surgical papers.
Okay.
Most of them are review papers like meta-analysis,
Mhm.
systematic reviews.
Okay.
Because I picked those skills up on my own. So I managed to publish quite a few papers, went for a few conferences, and so that entire year was nothing but research. Training was secondary. So that entire year I trained 2 to 3 times a week.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Didn't even do much weightlifting. I was just running
Mm-hmm.
actually, because running required the least amount of time.
Yeah.
Right.
it's
I don't
very-
need to go to a gym. I don't need to warm up.
Step out the door, go for a run.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what I did for a year. And then 2018, start of 2018 to the middle of 2018, I was still doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Only when there were rumors that they were changing the games format,
Mm-hmm.
such that the national champion may have a chance to go to the games. then I thought, maybe I might have a shot at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so once again, my friends convinced me, to give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I think only when CrossFit made the official announcement, then I made the switch back to training
Okay.
regularly. Yeah,
Wow. So it's been basically less than a year
yeah,
that you've been really fully training for this. That's
Yeah.
pretty incredible. You were just running
Yeah.
all last year,
Yeah.
and now less than a year of CrossFit
Yeah.
training, and you're at the games. That's incredible. So, where are you at I want to know kind of what your training schedule has been like this year. Where are you at in your medical studies? What are you doing day to day
Yep.
in medical school? And then how did you fit your training in
Yep.
with all of those responsibilities?
Yeah. So in Singapore, the undergraduate it is an undergraduate course, so it's 5 years.
Okay.
So first 2 years.
And that's right after high school you go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you call it. So we call it junior college.
Okay.
I think that's your high school is.
So like what age do you
18.
At 18 you start
Yeah.
junior college?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, 18 we finished junior college.
Junior. Okay,
Yeah.
so that would be like our high school. Yeah.
Correct. And so I had to go through national service first, and then
Okay.
I went to Sydney, then came back to Singapore. So now I'm in my 4th year of medical school.
Okay.
It's penultimate year, so it's clinical
Mhm.
rotations. So the schedule, in terms of how I try to fit training in, it varies because different rotations demand, different. There are different expectations,
Yeah.
different workloads. So, for instance, when I was doing my surgical posting, I woke up, as early as 4 a.m.
Mhm.
to get my training done at from 4:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m.
Wow.
And then I had to drive down to the hospital.
Mhm.
That was for surgery.
Yeah.
But for other postings that I could afford to report a bit later,
Yeah.
so I would typically train at around 7 to 8 a.m.
Uh-huh.
and then do a second session at night.
Okay. That's so
Yeah.
crazy because when I did my surgery rotation
Yeah.
here, we had to be at the hospital at 4:30 a.m. But I'm talking to surgical residents in my hospital that are from foreign countries. They say that the U.S. is the only place that it's like that. Like in most
Yeah.
other countries, you start at a reasonable hour.
It's not 4:30 years sounds.
Maybe that's why I decided not to go into
Yeah, yeah,
surgery. But
Yeah.
okay. So you're still able to get some training in the morning and the evening.
Yeah.
But you had to be up pretty early to
Yep.
do it. Okay. Now, why did you decide on medicine? Is it something that you were always interested in, or why medical school?
To be honest, like in Asia, there's this whole culture where traditional culture where
Yeah.
parents want their kids to either be lawyers or doctors,
Mhm.
right? So I won't deny that there's some element of that
Sure.
growing up.
Sure.
But more and more so, as I find out a bit more about medicine, I find that it is a very dynamic. It offers a very dynamic career.
Mm-hmm.
You can work lifelong. With the degree, you can do many things.
Mhm.
You can do. I mean, if you don't want to be a doctor, you can be. You can work in a pharmaceutical company. You can do your own business. And within the hospital itself, there are many things you can do. You can do research. If you don't like to see patients, you can see patients, you can treat patients,
Mhm.
or if you don't like that, you can do surgery. So medicine offers you a wide variety of options later on in life.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fulfilling career, as cliche as it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and the thing is that your work changes on a daily basis, right? It is not, you don't do things, every day is different. Every
Mhm.
patient is different. Yeah,
It's not
that's what,
predictable. Every
Yeah.
person responds differently.
yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's what I love about medicine.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And now we were talking yesterday. You said that you're pretty sure you want to go into a surgical field.
Yeah.
Not sure exactly which one yet,
Yeah.
but what drew you to surgery as opposed to maybe a more medical field?
Yep. So I think I'm quite an impatient person.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that sense, as much as chronic diseases is a growing thing in Singapore, I don't think that sort of thing fits me.
Yeah.
I don't like to see patients coming back to me again and again and again for
Very
follow-ups.
frustrating.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I don't think that's my style. So I prefer something that's quicker, shorter, sharper, where the moment the patient wakes up from the bed, the tumor is gone, he's fixed, his bones are fixed.
Mm-hmm.
He's more or less cured
Mm-hmm.
in that sense. Yeah. So that's why I was drawn to
Mhm.
surgery.
You can have a huge impact.
Yeah.
Yeah, and really, I mean, physically, you can actually fix things right in front of your eyes,
Yeah,
which is
correct.
pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So, you said you're just finishing your 4th year or
Starting
fourth year. Okay,
Yeah.
so you have basically 2 years
Yep.
left, and those are all clinical, or do you
Yeah.
spend then a lot more time in surgery towards the end, if that's what you're interested in?
No. So there are a fixed number of rotations which you
Mhm.
have to go through. So third year in the clinical, in third year we had to go through the core rotations, which
Mhm.
is surgery,
Medicine.
internal medicine, orthopedics,
Mhm.
pediatrics, and family medicine.
Mhm.
Fourth year is a bit more of I would say a more relaxed year, where you go through the uh, other rotations, the smaller rotations like ophthalmology,
Okay.
ED, pathology, stuff that you probably only see once in your life
Mhm.
unless you intend to pursue. And then fifth year, you go back to the core rotations.
Okay.
And only, and of course, there's a elective period where you can do whatever you want.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Very exciting.
yeah.
So now, talk to us about how difficult it was, or maybe easy it was for you to actually be able to take time off to come here to compete in the games.
So initially, it was difficult because, for one, CrossFit isn't an official Olympic sport
Mhm.
that the government recognizes.
Yeah.
Secondly, because I needed 1 week, I needed to come here a week earlier to acclimatize. That would mean that I had to apply for 2 weeks leave,
Mhm.
and that exceeded the maximum number of leave days I could apply for specific posting.
Mhm.
So there was a bit of back and forth with the director and
Mhm.
coordinator, and I think with the help of, because there were a couple of media
Mhm.
platforms, publishing the news on
Mhm.
this CrossFit thing. So there was a bigger awareness.
They said,
Uh,
okay, this is the real deal.
yeah,
You're not
it
just
is.
going on vacation.
So that might have helped. But at the end of it, they were very nice people, very understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what was it like for you going through the Open this year and then finding out that you actually did earn that spot to come to the games?
So I think I didn't. Of course, I went into the Opens with the goal of winning.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had the chance. But of course, I wasn't certain that I would get top spot, especially after I think event 1, which was I think wobbles and rowing,
Right.
was totally not my thing. I'm short, I'm light.
Yeah,
So
not good for short people.
Yeah, not good for It was the worst workout for me. So even in that workout, I was like 10th in the box or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and bottom down the leaderboard in Singapore. But after event 2, which was a cleans workout, I think, that bumped me back up.
Okay.
And I knew that the following 3 to 4 workouts would probably favor me.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I'm not someone who fancy rowing,
Mhm.
assault bike stuff like that,
Mhm.
machine stuff. Because they typically favor the heavy guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so then once you found out that you earned the spot, what sort of support have you felt around you, maybe with your fellow students, your family, friends, and then Singapore in general?
Yeah, I think there was, of course, a lot of shock, a lot of happiness, a lot of pride, because we all know that this is the first time that Singapore gets to send athletes to the games.
Mhm.
Of course, within the box, there was a lot of, proud. Members were proud, box owners were very happy. And also outside of the box, I received a lot of support from people I don't know, people overseas, via social media, and of course my family,
Mhm.
because also financially it is an expensive trip.
Yeah.
So
Especially coming from
yeah,
Singapore.
it is a long, far, pricey trip. So they were very willing to support me all out for this trip.
Wow.
And on top of that, I think the box was nice enough to organize a fundraising event to raise funds for us. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So you came out here a week early.
Yeah.
What sort of things did you do when you got here to prepare for the competition and acclimatize?
So actually, I thought that I would need to acclimatize. There was a lot to acclimatize, but actually, in fact, the weather here was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Singapore is summer all year round, right?
Uh-huh.
When we came here, it was hot, like in Singapore, but it wasn't humid.
Mm-hmm.
So the temperature-wise, it was not that bad. It was just the jet lag that I needed to overcome.
Yeah.
So when I came here, I just did, I think, 2 sessions.
Mm-hmm.
like a deload week kind of thing, and then rested the rest of the weekend.
Yeah. Has there been anything that you've done around Madison leading up to the competition, or things to kind of help yourself relax and get into the right mindset?
Yeah, so I mean, Madison is really beautiful, and so my girlfriend and I, we explored almost every of the popular hikes in Madison. So
Yeah.
we went to Devil's Lake, we went to, I think, Blue Mountain State Park. We actually also, I think there's like a e-bike
Yes.
thing,
The
B-cycle.
B-cycle, yes.
So we actually went on 2 occasions. We actually, I think it was 2 days before the competition, I can't remember.
Okay.
But we took the bike and we rode a full loop around Lake Monona, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Monona.
Yeah, that took us like 3 to 4 hours. That was quite fun.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Like the weather was good, scenery was good.
Yeah, talk about a perfect deload week,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So yeah,
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw some of your pictures on Instagram of the hikes. It
Yeah,
looked really beautiful.
very beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then you get here. What was the first, I think that registration was maybe the first experience that you had being here on site. What was that like?
I must say I didn't expect anything like that. It was quite overwhelming. It was very well organized. The sponsors, Reebok, they were very generous with the stuff they gave. Yeah, so I didn't expect any of that. So it was pretty cool. Like, so I that sort of put a stamp on that, like it was quite worth it coming all the way here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what has it been like then meeting some of the other athletes and interacting with them at the athlete dinner and warming up?
Yeah. So I think, before coming here, you watch them on TV, you watch them on YouTube, you see them on social media, you really, you fan craze over them. But when you actually see them, they're actually really very nice people. Very nice to talk to, they're very approachable, despite them being so busy, even entertaining a whole lot of other people. So it was quite cool. And getting to compete against Ben Smith in the same heat was pretty cool.
That was really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Is there anyone else that you were most excited to meet that maybe you've looked up to as you've gone through your training?
Actually, not really. So, I don't think I'm someone who. Of course, there are people I idolize, people I
you
look
don't
up
get
to.
too starstruck.
Yeah, I don't get too. Yeah.
That's fair. It's probably a good thing for your competition advantage too, that you're not going to get too nervous.
Yeah.
So then take us through when you found out what the first event was. Obviously, this was a big test because a lot of people are getting cut.
Yeah.
So when you heard the event, what were your first thoughts?
When I heard snatches, I was very excited. 185 pounds wasn't too bad. Like, I knew 185. I could string them easily.
Yeah.
It wasn't the problem.
What is your best ever snatch?
I think my 1RM was 235 pounds when I was like 70 kg.
Okay.
So 185 wasn't that bad.
Something you could handle.
I could handle. Yeah. But then legless rope climbs had to come in, and I knew all along that my biggest weakness is my grip endurance. Like my grip strength and my grip endurance. And that was something I've been working with throughout this prep, but probably still not sufficient. But yeah, it was a major turnoff. Like, like the snatches were like, whoa, yeah, snatches. Everyone was telling me, yeah, it's your thing, go for it, snatches,
Yeah.
But then
the legless rope climbs have to sneak in there.
And I must say, like in Singapore, like the other thing I think I totally underestimated the height of the rope.
Yeah.
It was much higher than I thought. Like in Singapore, we don't have that high ceilings.
Yeah.
The places I train at in Singapore, we have ropes, but they aren't that high. So it was a totally different stimulus during the workout itself.
Completely.
And I was fried. Like, Yeah.
Yeah, it's completely different. And then on top of that, I think the environment, like being outside, having the sun. Yeah. So after that workout, or I guess take us through kind of the workout. I mean, when it was 3, 2, 1, go, you went off for the run.
Yeah.
What was your experience?
So I knew I had to pace myself for the run because the round one is not going to be, it's not going to determine the winner and stuff like that. And I knew I had to save energy for the rope climbs. I didn't want to be huffing and puffing going up the ropes. So I ran I paced myself pretty well on the runs, but I think at the end of the day, the ropes still got the better out of me. Like, yeah, my endurance, my upper body endurance just wasn't there. Yeah.
And it's a lesson I feel like so many athletes learn
Yeah.
at the CrossFit Games, and
Yeah.
then they come back next year stronger with a vengeance. So
Yeah.
after having completed that workout, what were your thoughts? Is it something that is giving you more fuel to come back next year, or are you happy with the experience the way it was?
I'm definitely happy with the experience, but of course, it definitely fueled me to, work on this, this big gap of mine. But for sure, it was a major disappointment because I thought that, snatches, right? And I never thought that I would be eliminated because I can't do a movement. If I was able to do everything, but probably not fast enough, I may not have been that disappointed.
Yeah.
But the very fact that I couldn't even do the movement was a big disappointment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
Or, being able to at least finish a workout, or
Yeah.
versus not getting it within the time cap,
Yeah.
or being stopped by something like that. It makes it a lot harder, I think.
Yeah.
Did you go to, I think Greg Glassman had a dinner for the athletes.
Yeah.
It was that Friday evening or Thursday
Yeah.
evening.
Yeah.
Did you go?
You mean the athletes dinner?
I'm not sure.
Oh, the private reception, right?
Yes.
I didn't go.
You
I
didn't
had
go.
something on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How have you approached the rest of the weekend? Now you're in Madison for a few more days. The CrossFit Games are going on. What are you doing kind of to celebrate the games are over?
Actually, we didn't do much of a celebration. We're just chilling. But also, actually, because both of us, my girlfriend and I, we have a weightlifting competition coming up
Oh, okay.
in September. So we're sort of rushing to prep for that. It's about 4 to 5 weeks out.
Oh my gosh, so you didn't really take any time
Yeah.
off. I saw you at the gym this morning.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So that was what I was there for.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're sort of trying to rush back into training, peaking ourselves for the competition.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what competition is that, I think?
It's just a local weightlifting competition.
In Singapore.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. What, as far as your training goes, this whole season, did you have a specific coach or specific key people that helped you to prepare?
So prior to, during the Opens actually, I think this box from New Zealand, CrossFit East Tamaki.
Okay.
I think they've been to the games a couple of
Yeah.
times. The box owners actually programs for a couple of athletes in my box. So I just hop onto the program. It's like a shared program.
Okay.
But after they made the official announcement that I was going to the games, and then I decided to take things a bit more seriously. I thought that maybe an individualized programming might be better. So I went out to look for a coach. So I asked Harold Roberts
Okay.
from Australia,
Yeah.
Project X, right? Yeah. So their coach, I think Rob from Raw Strength and Conditioning. I asked her for his contact. She managed to hook me up with him, and I told him that I want a coach, and I was actually considering a few other people in the United States, but I think because of the time zone difference,
Yeah.
communication would be a problem, and so I felt that maybe Rob from Australia might be better because it is just a 2 hours time difference. It wouldn't be that bad.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And any thoughts about, I know it's just still new, but any thoughts about how you might approach training for the upcoming year? I mean, I know now we've got the Open coming up in October, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So I've told myself, I'm actually, because we don't know whether things are going to change,
Sure.
right? Whether the qualification format is going to change. But assuming if it doesn't change, meaning to say the national champion qualification is still going to be there, then of course I'll train for the next Opens, train properly for the next Opens, hoping to qualify again. But if that doesn't happen, if the games are going to change again, then I might sort of switch gears a bit to weightlifting. Try to go back to competitive weightlifting for Singapore. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And is that something, do you have any aspirations of trying to make, I mean, the Olympics are coming up.
Yeah.
Is that something that's on your radar, or?
Yeah. So actually quite recently, I think just a month back,
Yeah.
people from the Singapore Weightlifting Federation told me that to come down for an assessment
Okay.
because I think they were looking for athletes. They were selecting athletes for the SEA Games,
Okay.
which is the Southeast Asian Games. It's a big
Mhm.
competition. So I only needed a qualification total of 220 kg,
Mhm.
which wasn't that bad.
Okay.
So I went down for the assessment, and I managed to snatch 105 and clean and jerk 135,
Wow.
weighing in at 73 kg.
Okay.
So my total was 240 kg, way above
The qualification.
the qualification mark. Then the president came up to me and said that actually the deadline was over.
Oh.
He mistook the deadline as 15 July, but it was actually 15th of June.
Oh.
Yeah. So that was meant to be on the radar, but now it's gone.
Yeah.
And so the next step would be to try to qualify for a couple of bigger competitions
Mhm.
that are sanctioned by the IWF.
Okay.
I think there's the Australian Opens. I think there's also the Asian Championships, stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be the next couple of goals
Very
over the next few
cool.
months. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, I think we'll be excited either way if we see you again in the CrossFit Games or
Yeah.
on the weightlifting platform. Sounds
Yep.
like you have lots of opportunities.
Yep.
And still doing a great job of balancing it with your studies and your medical career.
Yep.
I like to close with 3 questions on the podcast that I ask everyone.
Yep.
So the first one is the 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health.
Okay. I think number one, I think it's getting to train.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think training keeps me going, and I must say I love training.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'm addicted to it, but it keeps me physically and mentally, up and about during the day.
Sure.
I think the second one is, of course, spending time with my loved ones. So I'm fortunate, that I get to train with my partner every
Mhm.
night. After hospital, it's something I look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Because time in hospital can be that draggy.
Mm-hmm.
It can be so long, tiring, mentally and physically. So that is something I truthfully look forward to at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to train with my partner.
Yeah.
And I think the last one is actually I think food. I'm actually a food lover,
Mm-hmm.
but right now I look forward to actually cooking every day, cooking my meals. In the past, I used to eat junk, like complete junk. Yeah, not counting anything,
Uh-huh.
eating lots of crap. But now I look forward to actually cooking my own meals every night,
Mhm.
sitting down, eating, eating properly, eating slowly, stuff like that. Yeah. So these I think are the 3 things.
Very good. And do you follow any specific guidelines for your nutrition? Are you tracking macronutrients, or do you have any guidelines for the quality of food that you're eating now?
So with my coach, he also brought in his dietitian for me,
Okay.
and so I think her Instagram handle is the sports dietitian.
Mm-hmm.
So the good thing about her her platform is that she doesn't give you any macros,
Okay.
so you actually don't have to count anything. She gives you the exact diet plan and recipe for each and every meal,
Perfect.
and she doesn't want you to count anything. Just follow the recipe, follow
Mhm.
the meal plan. Yeah. So that has been pretty helpful.
That sounds
Yeah.
awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. What's one thing that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you have a hard time implementing it?
I think I would still stick with exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Why I say it would be hard in implementing it is because I think in the near future, I think maybe in my 5th year of medical school, in my 1st year as a houseman, I don't think I will have the time to
Mhm.
exercise daily. Maybe even during the weekends, exercise may be a blessing.
Mhm.
If you're on call during the weekends, stuff like that, you
Yeah.
won't have time.
Yeah.
And so I think exercise, it is exercise.
Well, I think it's important, and at least what I found too, is that you have made it a habit early on, and so you realize how important it is,
Yeah.
and so you will find ways to still do it,
Yeah.
even if it's not every day, but you'll
Yeah.
still find ways to do it regularly.
Yep.
All right, last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
I think I used to think that a healthy life involves just exercising and eating well, but I think there's a huge other element of relationship, quality time, particularly quality time spent with your family, with your loved ones, because I think that keeps you mentally sane.
Yes.
Training is physically tiring, it is mentally tiring, but having your family around, just relaxing with your loved ones during the weekends, I think that really helps. Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
So true.
Yeah.
Last question for you. How much do you sleep? How are you able to prioritize sleep, or how much sleep do you end up getting?
So last time, previously, sleep was again another big issue. I was sleeping like 4 to 5 hours. But right now I'm trying to sleep a bit earlier. I'm taking some supplements to help me sleep better, like I think ZMAs, they do help me sleep a bit better. But now I get in about 7 hours.
Okay.
But I think the next step would be to track my sleep quality, which is something I haven't been doing. Yeah.
Always things to improve on, that's for sure.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for sitting down with me, sharing a little bit about your story. I'm excited to be able to share that with everyone listening.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hey there. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode. It was super interesting for me to sit down with Ian to hear from his perspective what it has been like to train and compete in the CrossFit Games while also working through medical school in Singapore. Here are some of my big takeaways from our conversation. Number one, it's clear that CrossFit is growing around the world, and I think having a national champion representing each country at the Games is only going to help it to develop internationally. It was great to hear Ian talking about the support he's received from his gym, from his school, his town and local community in making his trip to the Games a success. Number two is that CrossFit will always expose your weaknesses. No matter how long you've been doing it or how much better you've become, there are always things that we can improve at. That's the beautiful thing about CrossFit. There's always something to work towards. And it's often those things that we really don't want to do because we're not as good at them that we can benefit most from practicing. There are also always unexpected variables that we can be thrown into, such as what Ian talked about with his disappointment in that first workout of the Games. Some of the challenges of being outside and having to deal with the sun, as well as having to deal with ropes that were a little bit different than the ones he had practiced on. So we've all been in situations that we weren't quite prepared for, and we had to adapt in that moment. The more we can get comfortable with the uncomfortable and expect the unexpected, the better that we're all going to be able to handle those situations that we're not quite prepared for. My third takeaway was that support from family and friends is hugely important. It was clear that Ian was supported by his girlfriend, who traveled with him halfway across the world to be there with him all weekend, but it was also clear that he had a huge cadre of support back home in Singapore. And it was so great to see this support in action, and I know that Ian competing at the Games was a huge inspiration for his family and friends back home too. So I hope you had some good takeaways from this episode yourself. Thanks again so much for tuning in, as always. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefouché.com, and subscribe to my email list. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send me an email at info@juliefouché.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on future episodes. Don't forget you can train with me through Beyond the Whiteboard by visiting trainwithjuliefouché.com. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.